There's this moment that nobody warns you about. You're sitting there, looking at your savings account, and instead of immediately calculating how many months of rent that covers, or whether it's enough to survive a job loss, or doing the math on every worst-case scenario that could possibly hit you next month, you just sit with it. The number starts with a 5. There's a comma after it. And something about it feels fundamentally different from every other number you've ever seen in that account. It's not that you feel rich. It's not that all your problems dissolved overnight. It's something quieter than that, and honestly something more powerful. I'm Mia, and I've spent an embarrassing amount of time thinking about money. Specifically about why certain numbers completely rewire how you think, how you work, and what kind of future you're even able to imagine. And today I want to talk about $50,000. Because if you think $20,000 changes things, and it does, I have a whole video on that. What happens at $50,000 is on a completely different level. Most people never get here. That's not an exaggeration. That's just math. And I want to show you exactly what you're building toward, or what you may have already crossed without fully realizing what just changed. If you're new here, hit subscribe and give this video a like if it ends up helping you see money differently. Okay, let's get into it. Let me start with a number that stopped me cold when I first saw it. The median American household has about $8,000 saved. $8,000. Not $8,000 in investments. Not $8,000 in retirement accounts. $8,000 in accessible savings. That's it. That's the middle of the country. And here's the number that puts $50,000 into perspective. Only about 29% of Americans have more than $50,000 in non-retirement liquid assets. So when the title of this video says most people never get here, that's not motivational poster language. That is a real statistic about a very real threshold that 7 out of 10 Americans will never cross. Now, if you've been on this savings journey for any amount of time, you already know what the early miles feel like. Getting to your first $10,000 felt like crawling through sand. Every month you'd save something, then an expense would hit, car repair, medical bill, a move, and you'd watch a chunk of it disappear. $20,000 felt like breathing room for the first time, like you finally had a buffer between you and disaster. But somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000, something strange happens. The progress starts feeling slower. You're still saving, you're still being disciplined, but the milestone ahead doesn't seem to be getting any closer. And you start wondering if you've already gotten all the benefit there is to get. I felt that. I thought maybe $50,000 was just $20,000 with a few extra commas. Like, okay, more is better, but is it actually different? It is different. It is so completely different that I'm a little annoyed nobody made a video about it sooner. Think about it this way. You know that image of a boulder being pushed up a hill? At $0, you're at the bottom, pushing. The boulder barely moves. At $10,000, you've built some momentum. You're still pushing, but you've made real progress up the slope. At $20,000, you crest the first ridge. The slope levels off a bit. The pushing gets easier. At $50,000, you reach the top of the mountain. And for the first time, gravity is entirely on your side. You're not pushing anymore. You're guiding. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part that most financial content completely misses. The changes at $50,000 aren't mostly mathematical. The most powerful ones happen in your brain. And once they flip, they tend not to go back. There's a piece of research that I think about almost every week. Researchers studying financial scarcity, specifically Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shaffer, found that the mental burden of managing financial stress consumes the cognitive equivalent of about 13 IQ points. 13 IQ points. Not because you're less intelligent than wealthy people, but because your brain is busy. It's running a background program called How Do I Survive Until Next Month? And that program takes up space. Mental bandwidth that other people are using to plan ahead, see opportunities, and make better decisions. Think about what that actually looks like in your daily life. It's spending 3 minutes at a gas station deciding between premium and regular, doing mental math about your checking account. It's being invited to a friend's birthday dinner and immediately, automatically, calculating whether you can afford it, before you even decide if you want to go. It's lying awake at 2 a.m. running through every possible financial disaster that could hit you next month. That is not a personality trait. That is scarcity mode. And your brain cannot think expansively, creatively, or strategically when it's stuck in scarcity mode. I remember the first time I checked my account and saw $50,000. And I just sat there longer than I needed to. Not doing math. Not calculating anything. Just sitting with it. And I realized what was different. For the first time in my adult financial life, I wasn't scared. Not just less scared. Not just managing my fear better. Actually not scared. And that is a completely different operating system. Let me show you what I mean with two people. Same income, same job, same city. The only difference is one has $50,000 saved and one has almost nothing. Monday morning, both of them get in their cars. The check engine light comes on. Person one feels a spike of dread. They immediately start calculating. Can I make it through the week? Can I put this on a card? What if it's something major? They arrive at work distracted and stressed, and they stay that way for days. Person two, let's call her Mia, sees the light, makes a mental note to book a service appointment, and moves on with her morning. It's annoying. It's not a crisis. Same car. Same problem. Completely different brain response. Completely different day. Completely different quality of thinking for the next 48 hours. But here's what I think is the most profound shift at $50,000. And I don't hear people talk about this enough. When you have $50,000 saved, your identity changes. Not your bank balance. Not just your options. Your identity. There is a difference between being someone who is trying to save money and being someone who has money saved. One is a behavior. One is who you are. And the reason that matters is because identity drives behavior automatically. You don't have to white-knuckle your way through every financial decision anymore. You just make choices consistent with who you now know yourself to be. Okay, so we've talked about what changes in your brain. But here's the thing about $50,000 specifically. And this is different from $10,000 or $20,000. At this level, something mathematical starts happening that will genuinely change how you look at your account balance from this moment on. Okay, let's run the actual numbers. And I want you to stay with me here, because this is the part of the video that will change how you look at your savings forever. $50,000 invested in a simple index fund at a historical average return of 8% per year. That generates $4,000 per year, or $333 per month. Without touching it, without working an extra hour, without a side hustle, without a second job, your money is now earning more per month than many Americans save in a month. Let me say that differently. Your $50,000 is working a part-time job. It's generating income. On its own. While you sleep. While you're at your actual job. While you're watching this video. Now here's where it gets really wild. Let's look at how long it takes to build each $50,000 milestone. Assuming you're saving $1,000 a month and earning 8% on your investments. Your first $50,000 takes about 43 months. That's roughly 3.5 years of discipline, sacrifice, and showing up every single month. Your second $50,000 only takes about 34 months. That's 9 months faster. For doing exactly the same thing, saving the same amount, taking the same level of risk. Why? Because now you have $50,000 working alongside your contributions, generating its own returns. Your third $50,000? About 28 months. Your fourth? About 23 months. Every single milestone arrives faster than the one before. And you never changed your behavior at all. The only thing that changed is that you have more money working on your behalf. Once you have $200,000, a new $50,000 is arriving roughly every 16 months, automatically, through returns alone. But the number that stopped me, the one I want you to really sit with, is this one. $50,000 invested today with no additional contributions at all, becomes $503,000 in 30 years. Add continued savings of $1,000 per month. That same $50,000 foundation grows to over $3.6 million. The $50,000 you build today is not $50,000. It is the seed of $3.6 million. And that is why this is different from $20,000. At $20,000, you have a safety net. At $50,000, you have a launch pad. But here's the part that most financial content never gets to. Because $50,000 doesn't just change what your money does. It changes what you're allowed to do. Let me show you what I mean. Let's talk about what $50,000 actually unlocks in your real life. Not theoretically, practically. First, your career. There's a piece of research I find infuriating and fascinating in equal measure. Studies show that employees with no savings except salary offers roughly 18% lower on average. Because financial fear makes you say yes to things you shouldn't. Think about that. You are negotiating against yourself. Every time you sit across a table from a potential employer and you don't have financial runway, you are operating from desperation, not choice. And they can feel it. Not because they're perceptive, because desperation is readable. I had a conversation with a manager last year about a promotion, and I remember noticing something that surprised me. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't desperately scanning her face for approval. I was just having a conversation, a real one, because somewhere in the back of my mind I knew, if this doesn't work out, I'm okay. Not comfortable, not thrilled, but okay. And that knowing changed how I carried myself in that room. Second unlock, the sabbatical option. $50,000 is typically the minimum threshold to take a serious career pivot. Go back to school without needing debt to survive. Launch a side business with real runway. Leave the wrong job without immediately accepting the next wrong job, just because you're panicking. Below $50,000, you can quit, but you can't be choosy. Above $50,000, you can be choosy. That is an enormous distinction. Third unlock. And this one is the most interesting to me. Calculated risk-taking starts to become rational. When you have no savings, risk avoidance is the smart play. Every gamble you lose could set you back 2 years. So you don't gamble. You don't start the business. You don't take the commission-based role. You don't invest in the thing that could double or fail completely. At $50,000, losing a calculated bet doesn't mean starting over. It means trying again. And that is a categorically different relationship with opportunity. And then there's this thing I want to mention that I call the door effect. Most people know that accredited investors get access to investment opportunities that regular people don't. Private equity, certain hedge funds, deals that aren't available on your standard brokerage account. You need $1 million in net worth to qualify for that. $50,000 doesn't get you there. Not even close. But what $50,000 does is put you close enough to that world that you start to see it. You start meeting people who are there. You start understanding that there is a different financial game being played, with different rules, different instruments, different timelines. Most people live their entire lives not knowing there's a door. $50,000 is the first time you can see it from where you're standing. But here's where I need to slow down. Because $50,000 is also, genuinely, one of the most dangerous milestones most people will ever hit. And I think it's actually more dangerous than staying at zero. I want to tell you about the most common thing I've seen happen to people who hit $50,000. They blow it. Not all at once. Not in one dramatic decision. Slowly. Quietly. Over about 18 months. Here's how it goes. You hit $50,000. You feel it. You feel different. And you think, I've earned this. I've been disciplined for years. I deserve to enjoy it a little. So you upgrade the apartment. It's only $400 more a month. You've earned it. Then you need a new car anyway. And now that you finally have savings, you don't have to get the cheapest one. So you get something you actually like. $600 a month. You've earned it. And because life is short and you work hard, you start saying yes to more things. Better restaurants. A trip you kept putting off. Concerts. Experiences. Another $500 a month. You've earned it. $1,500 in new monthly expenses. $18,000 a year. And within 18 to 24 months, you look at your account and the number still starts with a 5, but it's going the wrong direction. You didn't spend your $50,000. You upgraded your life until your $50,000 became irrelevant. And now you have all the lifestyle expenses of someone with money and all the financial anxiety of someone without it. Same stress. Higher baseline. Harder to ever feel ahead. The car is almost always the first domino. I've done an entire video on the car payment trap. Go watch it after this. But I will say this. A $700 monthly car payment on the day you hit $50,000 is the single fastest way to make sure you never feel $50,000's full power. Because here's what $50,000 is not. $50,000 is not a reward for good behavior. It's not evidence that you've arrived. It's a launch pad. And a launch pad is only useful if you don't furnish it and move in. Look, I'm not saying never enjoy your money. I'm saying be intentional about when and how the upgrade happens. Because the version of you who protects that $50,000 and lets it compound, that person's life in 10 years is going to look completely different from the version who spent it on a feeling of arrival. Here's what I've come to believe about $50,000 after all the reading and thinking and math I've done on this. The real transformation isn't financial. It's who you become in the process of getting there. To save $50,000 in a country where the median household has $8,000, you didn't just accumulate money. You proved something about yourself that most people around you have never proven about themselves. You proved you can delay gratification across years, not just weeks. You proved you can say no to things that feel urgent, the car, the apartment, the vacation, so you can say yes to things that matter. You proved that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. That identity, once it's formed, doesn't disappear when markets drop or emergencies hit or life gets complicated. It's yours. You built it. Nobody can take it. And if you're watching this and you're at $12,000 or $25,000, or you're still working toward your first $10,000, I want you to hear this. $50,000 felt impossible to me once. I remember looking at that number the same way I used to look at $10,000. Like it lived in a different universe. Like it was for people with advantages I didn't have. But the person with zero thought $10,000 was impossible. And the person with $10,000 thought $20,000 was impossible. And here's what all of them discovered when they got there. It wasn't a different universe. It was just the next mile. The math is on your side now. Gravity is shifting in your favor. The boulder is cresting the hill. And once it starts moving under its own momentum, you realize the only thing you ever had to do was keep pushing long enough to get there. Because here's the truth about $50,000 that nobody tells you. It doesn't just change your finances. It changes what you believe is possible for your life. And that might be the most valuable thing money can ever buy. If you want to see what happens after $100,000, because honestly, that's when the math gets genuinely ridiculous, that video is next. I'll link it above. Subscribe if you're new. Like this video if it helped. And I'll see you in the next one.